So, welcome back to another update summary this time round, update 2.47 Leviathans. A very big update for Naval, both in what got added for it and what it might mean for the future. First off, as usual with these videos, I will go over the new ship additions first, then we'll get into some of the other changes. So, the new ships. We'll start with the Americans and with their coastal lineup where we see the PT-95. This is a rank 1 battle rating 1.7 patrol boat. It carries 2 torpedoes, a 20mm and 2 dual 50 cals. Nothing much to say about this boat really. It is another PT boat, an early rank 1, and I'm not going to complain about it. It's always nice to see one of these less represented vessels in game. Another coastal vessel that got added was the British MTB 460. A rank 3 battle rating 2.3 coastal vessel. MTB 460 is quite like the MGB 75, which is a premium. However, MTB 460 carries 2 torpedoes, a 40mm pom-pom in the front and a dual 20 in the rear. The gun armament is similar to the MGB 75, but in a different mounting setup/layout. The torpedoes are a very much welcome addition to a boat like this, and it also carries 2 twin 7.7mm machine guns, one mount on either side of the ship. Probably not the most useful weapons out there, but they're there. Either way, a very cool boat. There weren't many fast torpedo crafts with a pom-pom yet in the British tree, and seeing this one in the deck tree is a very nice addition. Sticking with our coastal vessels, we have VTB-10 for France, a new reserve premium. Seeing as the reserves recently got changed a bit, this one is also there to update the reserve premium for France. Instead of having 2 7.7mm machine guns as the original VTB-9, this one now has a 20mm Oerlikon on the front, which is quite a significant upgrade. I don't own the boat myself, I haven't played it, but I do believe a 20mm Oerlikon at 1.0 is quite nice. And before we get to the main prizes, we have one smaller blue water vessel, this being the Japanese Yukikaze. Yukikaze is a rank 3 battle rating 4.0 premium, and in all honesty is quite a neat little premium for Japan, coming at 4.0 yet still being rank 3, meaning it has decent reward multipliers, although it is one of the lower reward multipliers for a rank 3 premium. It is quite a bit better than a rank 2 premium. 4.0 is also quite a nice battle rating for Japan, getting Harukaze and JDS Ayanami. All in all, a fun little destroyer and with a somewhat unique armament layout, having only 2 turrets of twin 127mm guns, 4 guns in total. This is a late war anti-air fit for Yukikaze, so yeah, neat ship. But now, the main vehicles for this update. Update Leviathans gets its namesake from the fact that every single blue water tree got a rank 7 battleship. This is a new rank for Naval and a big push towards the end of the line battleships. So, to start off this summary of these battleships, we'll go back to the Americans with the legendary USS Iowa. Iowa sits at the new rank 7 at a battle rating of 8.7. I don't think many of these ships need an introduction or a summary really. It's an Iowa. I don't know what else to say about it. It has 9 16-inch guns, it has a, 2 destroyers almost per broadside in terms of 5-inch guns, and many more in terms of 40mm bowfers. Iowa is an extremely cool looking ship, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. For those curious, there are currently 3 8.7 battleships, and Iowa firmly places second, but it is only just second place after first place, but we'll get to that ship later. Yeah, I won't get into all the details yet for Iowa, that'll come for its own review in due time, but it is the legendary Iowa. But it is not the only legendary ship we get this update. Germany gets 2, one of which is a premium, which we'll go over first. This would be the battle rating 7.7 rank 6 Gneisenau. Gneisenau is a Scharnhorst class battleship, but in game we see it with the hypothetical refit of the 15-inch guns. This is a refit that was planned for the Gneisenau, but never really came to be, mainly thanks to British bombing raids. But anyways, we see Gneisenau in this fit, and what is it like? Well, it has the survivability of the Scharnhorst, but much more interesting guns. These 15-inch guns are not too special in terms of gun caliber or damage, but you do get quite a high rate of fire. With a base rate of fire of 2 rounds per minute, but a aced crew fire rate of 2.6 rounds per minute. Quite good. However, it is a rank 6 premium and thus a €80 premium. I wouldn't really pick up Gneisenau for full price. It's a good ship, but it is not worth full price. Mainly because it is 7.7 and the top dogs this update are 8.7. And there are some really scary battleships in the BR ranges above Gneisenau. Anyways, that is one of the new German ships. The second one is the, well, almost as equally legendary as Iowa, the Bismarck, sitting at the new rank 7 at a battle rating of 8.3. Again, this ship really doesn't need much of an introduction, does it? It is the Bismarck, finally in game. Its main armament is again 15-inch guns, not bad guns, but nothing too special, other than their reload rate, which is also the exact same 2 to 2.6 rounds per minute as the Gneisenau, but with an extra third compared to Gneisenau. Armor-wise, the Bismarck is quite decent, but it does not get the same turtleback scheme as the Gneisenau, which does mean it is actually vulnerable to ammo racks. Keep that in mind. But still, it's a Bismarck, it's a cool ship. Then, moving on to the probably more controversial Russia, where we also get a new premium ship in the form of Sevastopol, at rank 6, battle rating 7.3. Sevastopol is a Kronstadt, so a battlecruiser hull we're already familiar with, but with the originally intended German 15-inch guns, which they were intending to give to these ships before, well, the two countries went to war. But here it is, Sevastopol with the German 15-inch guns, and also that exact same 2 to 2.6 rounds per minute fire rate. So yes, with the same 15-inch guns it does pack quite a punch, and at 7.3 it is a bit lower than Gneisenau, but it being a Kronstadt hull means that it doesn't really have much in the way of effective armor. And this ship also goes for the selling price of €80. I would definitely not recommend getting this ship for full price. It is just not that reliable in normal matches. It's a cool ship, however, and if you do get it on sale, it might be worth it to try and move up your Russian tree with it. I will say, I am not entirely sure whether or not these ships will go on sale by the time the anniversary comes around, because they might not be old enough yet, so do keep that in the back of your mind. So alright, there we are with Sevastopol, and now the most controversial ship in this update, the Sovietsky Soyuz. Sovietsky Soyuz is the Russian rank 7, battle rating 8.7 battleship, and currently among the 3 8.7s, top dog. I do have my own opinions on Soyuz, and they're not as bad as some people would think it would be. There's been a lot of complaining from people saying, oh, Soyuz is a fantasy ship, oh, it's paper, it's bullshit, it's, you know, made up, it's Russian bias. To those people, just ignore them. They don't really know what they're talking about, and if you knew what the requirements were for ships being added to the game, you would have seen Sovietsky Soyuz coming from a mile away, and if you just looked into Soyuz, you would have known that it would become this. So, what's the big deal about Soyuz? Well, first off, it's guns. Soyuz carries 9 16-inch guns. Okay, nothing too special, like we have Iowa, we have other 16-inch gun ships. Its rate of fire is also not too special, it's 1.6 rounds per minute to 2.1 with an aced crew. So, you know, pretty fast, but nothing out of the ordinary. But then you get to its stock shell. It gets a stock SAP shell with a explosive mass of 88 kilograms of TNT. And that's not all. It actually has very good penetration at range with that filler. And this is one of the more, controversial aspects of the ship. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think bursting charge is not really that big of a factor. Of course, combined with decent pen, it does mean it is dangerous. But I think that if I do unlock Sovietsky Soyuz in the near future, I would still main the AP just because of the much greater penetration. But that's not all that is controversial about Soyuz. You have its armor, which the armor layout of Soyuz is incredibly well... How do I say this? It's a really good armor scheme for the video game. And that has a lot of people in twists and turns, especially its main belt. Its main belt is not exceptionally thick, and there's no complex armor schemes behind it, it is just raw belt thickness. But one of the controversial matters is that it is rolled cemented armor. And historically, there are quite a few sources out there stating that the Russians were not capable of making rolled or face-hardened steel plates of this thickness. So people are in a bit of a twist about, this really shouldn't be cemented armor, it should just be homogeneous armor. And I can get that, I can get behind it, because the armor modifier from rolled cemented really does make a difference for this ship. Its citadel is also really quite high, leaving only very little gaps where you can actually try and sneak shells into to try and get to the innards of the ship. It also gets quite an advanced, as World of Warships players would call, icebreaker bow, which does help with angling. The barbettes are quite heavily armored, it's a very heavily armored ship with good guns. That's what it is. And because it's Russian, and because it's one of these project ships, people have been shouting Russian bias. I can get it, but at the same time, everybody should have known that this was coming someday, and this is what it was going to be. Oh well. I don't think it's really overpowered, it is definitely potent, but calling it overpowered is a bit of a stretch, in my opinion. Anyways, moving on to some more interesting ships, we go to Britain, with their rank 7 battleship, HMS Vanguard, sitting at 8.0. Some of you might say, why is Vanguard at 8.0, whilst the other battleships we've seen up until now for rank 7 are 8.3 and 8.7? Well, that's because the British Vanguard doesn't really carry that much potential in terms of firepower. You see, Vanguard still carries the same 15-inch guns that we're used to in the entire British tree. The only difference being is that it gets some more advanced shells. But they're still not quite enough to really compare to some of the 8.3s or 8.7s. They're also the same slow turrets, their reload is also the same, with 1.5 to 2 rounds per minute, depending on the crew skill. So in terms of firepower, Vanguard is nothing special. In terms of armor, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. She follows the trend of British battleships being quite resilient, which is very good to see. But it's also, again, nothing special in terms of secondary armament, in terms of mobility. Vanguard is a cool ship, it does have the reputation of being the last ever built battleship. But in terms of combat capability, it sits at 8.0. Which, I mean, I wouldn't complain about. Then, on to the third and final 8.7 ship this update, and my personal most anticipated ship, you could say, is the Japanese rank 7 battle rating 8.7 Yamato. Again, a very legendary ship that probably does not need an introduction for most of you. Yamato carries the biggest guns ever fitted to a naval vessel, at 18.1 inches or 460 millimeters. However, this does come at a cost. You see, this ship was meant for long-range battle. This ship was, designed for certain ranges in mind. And this armor scheme does not work well with War Thunder, the video game. Because parts of the citadel are angled, it means you cannot angle the ship. Because no matter how you angle your ship, you will show a flat citadel plate somewhere. And right behind that citadel plate is a massive, and I do mean massive, magazine. Whilst it shouldn't be too surprising to many of the Japanese naval mains, Yamato is a battleship that blows up incredibly easily. For those of you that remember the early days of Hyuga, or, well, Fuso, Yamashiro, any of the Japanese battleships really, their magazines are exposed, and when you hit them, they go boom. And Yamato is no exception. It is an incredibly cool ship, incredibly cool and very accurate guns. The rate of fire is nothing too great, with 1.5 to 1.9 rounds per minute, so, you know, nothing too quick. The guns do pack a hefty punch, but Yamato, at the more conventional battle ranges in most normal matches, is just incredibly vulnerable. If you can put it at longer ranges, let's say 18, 20 kilometers, its armor does come into effect, and its guns can hit back incredibly hard even at those ranges. So Yamato is an interesting ship, it is a powerful ship, but it is just not well suited for the environment the game is, unlike a ship like Sovietsky Soyuz. So, despite the somewhat disappointing survivability of Yamato, it is still a very cool ship, and very much a ship I have been enjoying. Then we move on to the Italians with their rank 7, battle rating 8.3 battleship, Roma. This is the pinnacle of Italian battleship design, carrying 15-inch guns, modernized ones too. Not the guns that Caracciolo carries, thank god. However, Roma is quite impressive. I've seen her do quite a lot, and theoretically she actually has more pen on her guns than Yamato does. But it is those guns where she hits a bit of a snag. You see, her rate of fire, with a stock crew, is 1 round per minute. Aced, this goes to 1.3 rounds per minute. This battleship has the longest reload of any blue water ship in the game. And that's just really sad. Roma is a very cool ship, it is a gorgeous ship, but that reload puts it firmly in last place when it comes to combat capability. Survivability seems okay. I haven't actually looked too deeply into it, as I'm nowhere near getting to Roma myself. But it's not looking bad. It's a cool ship. Armor is where it counts. It's just a shame of that reload. It really is. So from this gorgeous disappointment we go to the French Navy with their rank 7, battle rating 8.3, Richelieu. Another gorgeous and equally famous battleship. Richelieu is armed with 8 15-inch guns in 2 quad turrets on the front. And much like the gun layout of the Dunkirk, it carries the same weaknesses as Dunkirk. You see, much like Dunkirk, you need to know how to angle Richelieu. If you don't know how to angle your citadel, you will be in a lot of trouble. I haven't actually seen too many Richelieus, and I'm also nowhere near Richelieu myself, so I don't really know how the guns perform. I've not heard too many good things about it. But then again, I'll have to see for myself whenever I do eventually get it. The Richelieu in game that we see is also equipped with a late war American anti-air fit. So lots of Bofors, lots of Oerlikons. Always great to see. So, if you do not mind a challenge and know how to angle your ship, Richelieu does look like a very fun ship to get, with its unique gun layout. And that is it for all the ship additions. I do want to take a little stop here and say that this is a very big and important update for Naval. This is the big battleship update. Every single nation got their end-of-the-line battleship, although there are some missing, but we'll get into that soon. Every nation got a new battleship, a new top tier, although spread out over some new battle ratings, but we'll get into that soon as well. And to me, what this update entails is that this is it. Battleship development has reached its pinnacle. Now we move on to other stuff. I don't have a shadow of a doubt that we will see more Battleship over the coming updates, But I get the distinct feeling that they will not be the main focus anymore. And the reason I say that is because, well, for the past 5 years since New Power, we've always been able to tell, oh, the next update, we'll get another battleship. Oh, that update, we'll maybe get that battleship. Maybe we'll get 15-inch guns. Maybe we'll get 16-inch guns. Maybe we'll see some more battle cruisers, some highly advanced dreadnoughts, some modernized dreadnoughts, and went like that over 5 years. But now we've gotten to the point where we can no longer guarantee what we'll see next update. We can no longer say, oh, we'll see more battleships next update. Well, will we? That is no longer a guarantee. And that makes this update incredibly important because it is the next big step in Naval, I believe. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were to see some interesting stuff in the following 3 updates this year. But anyways, on to some other changes this update, shall we? First off, map changes. So, quite a few maps were made bigger to accommodate these battleships, although they did have some side effects. First of these would be Japanese port, where the blue water spawn points were moved 2 kilometers away from the capture points on both sides. This has made the map bigger in such a sense that the southern blue water spawn is now almost behind the southern island, and it's also opened up a route below the southern island. I have seen people try to go there in the first week of this update, and I can guarantee you it is a stupid idea. Don't do that. There's no objectives there. Nobody else is going to go down there. Okay, then we go to the next map, which is another 2 kilometer increase in the distance from spawn to objective, and this goes for both sides again, on both Domination and Encounter for Fuego Islands. Other than that, the map didn't change too much, so nothing much to say here. On Franz Josef land, we got a 2 kilometer spawn shift as well as new islands and a redistribution of where the capture points are. I haven't actually played this map since the redistribution of the capture points, but I have played it with the larger spawns and the new islands. I'm not the biggest fan. I liked Franz Josef as a very close range brawling map, and now it's no longer a brawling map. The other thing is that the islands also were one-sided. The island on the right-hand side of the map gave a much better cover than the island on the left-hand side. But oh well. Then we have South Kvarken also increased in size with another 2 kilometer distance increase from spawn to objective. This has made it so that Encounter on South Kvarken, hell, even Conquest, the distance from spawn to spawn is 20 or more kilometers, which is really nice for the new battleships, but a bit rough on the cruisers. Especially when you get Encounter and have to try and go for the convoy, which is on the other side of the map, and you only have 25 minutes to do so, and you're now even further away from the convoy. But okay. Then, Mediterranean port, same deal. 2 kilometer increase from spawn to objective. I find it a bit hard to talk about these changes because I haven't really played cruisers and destroyers all that much, especially the more difficult cruisers and destroyers. So I'm not entirely too sure what to think of these changes. For battleships, when I played the 87s, 77s, 80s, I will say that the longer spawn range is nice, especially for Yamato being able to position yourself a little bit better. But man, my gunnery does not keep up with those ranges. But okay, we have 2 more map changes, these being Palau Islands and Golden Bay. Both got a 500 meter spawn to objective increase. Something I want to note about these spawn distance changes is that, well, they're a bit of a band-aid on a big problem. I've mentioned this multiple times before during my live streams, but many of the in-game maps were fundamentally not designed for big cruiser and late battleship gameplay. They just weren't. And it is noticeable. There are, the maps are just not made for them. And just increasing the distance from spawn to objective doesn't really fix that problem. Granted, there are some further map changes I will go over soon, but just increasing spawn to spawn range does not fix the problem that many of these maps are very coastal favored, and that many of these maps just have one blue water spawn. You know, they're not designed for big blue water ships, and that needs to be a priority, is to actually either redesign maps or add a lot more maps actually fundamentally designed for big boat battles. But anyways, on to other map changes. Arabian Sea has seen the addition of one island and the removal of 3 others. Coral Islands has seen 12 islands get raised in height and 11 islands flat out removed. This I can agree with, because the coastal area of Coral Islands was a bit of a mess, with lots of sightlines you couldn't really... Well, lots of soft cover covering sightlines rather than hard cover, and a lot of islands blocking pathways. This being made clearer and more useful. Understandable. On Black Sea Port, they increased the height of Blue Water Islands. On the map Drowned City, the coastal exclusive map, they removed the floating shipping containers. I find it a bit of a shame. It's a very unique map, and I do think that those shipping containers added a bit more flair to it, but I can understand that the shipping containers could impede people's movement and could slow people down. Understandable, but a bit of a shame to see it go. A very interesting map addition, to, in my opinion, because I've actually experienced it, is Fiji. The coastal spawn areas on Fiji are now deeper, allowing for destroyers to move into them, and vessels with equally shallow drafts. This has been fun, playing Yukikaze and Yubari together. I had Fiji a couple of times and I managed to get into those coastal spawn areas, and that's fun to do in a small cruiser or destroyer. It's definitely opened up that map a bit for the lower rank bracket of blue water matches. And that does it for the map changes. Now, when it comes to other changes, these are some of the big ones. The accuracy of AI-controlled anti-air guns has been reduced, allowing for AI gunners to actually make mistakes and not get the right lead from the get-go. From my own observation, it seems that AI gunners, when they have to suddenly track a target that's already quite close to you, don't seem to get the lead quite right. If they've been tracking a target for quite a while outside of firing range, their accuracy seems to be generally okay once they do open fire. It also seems that the accuracy is a time-based thing. Again, this is just observation, I don't actually know this for sure. But from my own observation, it seems that gunners start off quite inaccurate, but do become more and more accurate the longer they've locked onto a target and the longer they've been firing at a target. Again, this is more my speculation and observation, and no real hard proof or me saying this is what's happening. All in all, this nerf is not that major, but it does give aircraft a little bit more wiggle room when attacking heavily fortified and defended ships. Then another quite big change is the dispersion nerf, or increase in dispersion, of all guns from 127 to 380 millimeters. So yeah, this affects a lot of blue water. So I'm not too sure about it, but it is a relatively substantial increase in dispersion. I'll get the numbers up on screen. So yeah, they're tweaking with dispersion again. It isn't a Naval update if they don't mess with the damage model somehow, whether it be directly or indirectly. Barbette fires have been refined, so to speak. Now the fire in a barbette will actually originate from the impact point of your shell and not just halfway up the barbette, no matter where you hit it. This can mean that shells impacting high in the barbette will not be the biggest threat towards ammo racks, but shells hitting low in the barbette will become a bigger threat to ammo racks if they set a fire there. On that same topic, for some reason this is in the patch notes for this update, magazine size now affects detonation damage. If you take less shells, less damage will be done to your ships if they detonate. Again, I find this weird that this was in this patch note because this change actually happened on April 1st. I'm not too sure if there's some wording that I'm just overlooking, if there's some change that I didn't catch. But I did mention this change in the last update summary video, the extremely late one. although this one is not going to be much better. So I guess something happened? I don't know really. Another big damage model change is in regards to flooding. So, whilst not being as big of a change as the hull segment thing that got added last update, flooding itself got changed a bit. Now, the calculation for whether a hole got made or not when hit by armor-piercing or high-explosive shells has been corrected. Armor-piercing shells now need to be of very large caliber to actually cause flooding. High-explosive shells will now cause holes depending on their high-explosive strength. And stopping or closing holes in your ship has become longer, a long repair process, meaning that flooding repairs are now actually a considerable repair. Previously, it was very easy to put fires on automatic, do repairs whenever you want, and flooding, oh, that's nothing to worry about, you'll just do that whenever it comes up. But now flooding is genuinely a repair that is a bit of a consideration. So having fires on automatic, but at the same time not dealing with flooding quickly can be a problem. It has caught me off guard several times after a shell room exploded and punched a hole in the bottom of my ship. My ship being on fire whilst also flooding, and both of these repairs being roughly equally as long, caused a bit of a headache sometimes. So keep that in the back of your mind, that flooding is now an actual repair concern. Other than that, there are some UI changes and a bunch of ship-specific changes. I highly recommend you, as usual, look at the patch notes for every major update yourself and every small update as well. When it comes to UI updates, there's some pretty neat ones. You will now get a small icon in your gun icon, I guess, at the bottom of your screen that will tell you if your turret no longer has any ammo. It's really useful. Say a shell room detonates, but you're not entirely sure if you have any shells left in that turret anymore, so is it worth repairing the turret? Now you will see an icon saying this turret no longer has any shells, so you can hold off from repairing the turret, as it's out of shells anyways. There's also now an indication of where you're on fire in your own little X-ray at the bottom left of your screen. That little paper model will now actually show you where you're burning. Very useful. There's also some changes to the F1 help menu, but I've not entirely figured those out yet, but it can be useful to every now and then look at the F1 menu and see if you're missing anything. So other than these changes, there's a very big change that I'm not really talked about, and that is the economy and battle rating changes. You see, with a new rank always comes economy changes, and luckily for us, this time around they also were combined with really, really big BR changes. Well, big on paper. As you may have noticed from the ship overview, the new maximum battle rating for Naval is 8.7. So what happened to all the other ships? How did they get decompressed? Well, I'm sad to say not that majorly. The areas where decompression is most noticeable is the earlier battleships and the earlier destroyers. The late destroyers, early cruisers, late cruisers all still roughly face the same enemies they have before. There's minor differences here and there, of course, and I do recommend you look at the full list of changes at your own pace somewhere else. I'll link a spreadsheet with all the changes down below. But yeah, it's a lot of changes. It's very difficult to see what the impact they had, but from my own experience, I've noticed that the difference is mainly early battleships, early destroyers. So, all in all, decompression, not really that much. It's nice for battleships, it's nicer to begin, but late destroyers still can see late cruisers still see early battleships, early cruisers still see late cruisers, all that kind of stuff. But okay, that's the battle rating changes. What about the economy changes? Well, this is also quite an important thing. With every new maximum rank increase, all preceding ranks become cheaper. This change is mainly noticeable with the late cruisers and early battleships. So rank 4 and 5 are the more noticeable changes. There are some reductions in rank 3, rank 2 even. Actually, there's quite some increases in rank 2 even. But yeah, there's some decreases in rank 3, but not nearly as major as rank 4 and 5. Another big factor to this is that quite a few cruisers got foldered. All the American treaty heavy cruisers, one folder. All the Russian Sverdlov variants, one folder. I think the British even have some heavy cruiser folders. Yeah, the British county classes, all foldered. The battle classes and the Darings, I think those were already folded, but I'm not quite sure. Then Japan, Furitaka and Furitaka and Aoba, foldered. So these folders, with the fact that folded vehicles are immediately half off, did reduce the general RP cost of an entire tree but quite significantly. So yeah, great to see. Very great to see even. And that's about it for this update. I do want to state that whilst this update brings along the big, the famous, the legendary battleships, all in all the state of Naval hasn't changed too much, despite the BR decompression, despite the economy changes. Naval is still the same old, same old. There will always be one meta battleship. There will always be, horrendous down tiers, horrendous up tiers. That's just how Naval is and has always been. But the thing I take away from this update is that the preceding few updates, and all future updates really, are going to become a lot more interesting. Because now, our future focus is no longer, oh, when will we get Iowa? When will we get Bismarck? When will we get Yamato? Now, our questions are going to be, what are we going to get next? And that I find incredibly exciting, and I cannot wait to see what else we'll be getting this year. Part of me hopes we'll see submarines. Part of me hopes we'll see maybe even something more radical. But only time will tell. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you around for the next one a bit sooner than this. And a quick side note, the next Devblog season should be soon around the corner. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.